Good evening. Welcome to Dysautonomia International's June 2019 webinar. My name is Lauren Stiles. I'm the president of Dysautonomia International, and I'm very pleased to be joined this evening by Emily Childs, who is the Regional Education Coordinator for the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center at a traumatic brain injury clinic at Fort Drum, New York. And she's going to talk to us this evening about different resources available for traumatic brain injury and concussed patients. And even though these are mostly veterans-based resources, a lot of them are very useful for people, whether you're a veteran or not, for anyone who's had a brain injury or concussion. And before we get started, I just wanted to thank our very generous sponsor, SaltStick Vitacium, has been a big supporter of Dysautonomia International. And thanks to their generous donations, we're able to afford some pretty expensive webinar software. So we thank them for that. And so I'm going to pass the session over to Emily now. You can ask some questions if you have questions during the talk on your control panel, on your GoToWebinar control panel. There's a little place to type in questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of Emily's talk. Okay, so I'm going to switch it over to Emily now. Give us a second here.
Okay, are you able to see it?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you having me tonight, and for everyone that's coming to view this, thank you for having some time aside to listening to me today. But like Lauren introduced me, I'm Emily Childs. I am the Regional Education Coordinator with the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center. I am located at Fort Drum, New York, which far up north as you can probably get, the 10th Mountain Division, but within my region I kind of take care of the Northeast region from Maine down to New Jersey, and there's a bunch of other RECs within the nation. I'll kind of touch base there too. But today I wanted to touch base, kind of learn a little bit more about TBI in the military, the incidence rates, effects, and resources that are available. And like Lauren mentioned, yes, these can be used for veterans, active duty service members, their families, but this can honestly be used for anyone. A lot of the resources I'm going to touch base are at your disposal, easy to download. You can actually order them. Everything's completely free. It's literally just a good resources for you guys to have. So I'll go ahead and get started. So I do have to do this first. I have to do my disclaimer, but the views expressed in this presentation are those of the author and do not reflect the official policy of the Department of Defense or the U.S. government. There are no relevant financial relationships or conflicts of interest to disclose. All right, so I kind of spread this up into 3 different sections. I am going to touch base, which I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with, what a TBI is, but I'll kind of go over the DoD definition of the TBI, different severity types, incidences of the TBI, causes of those within the military. And so I'll go ahead and get started. So how the DoD defines a traumatic brain injury is a traumatically induced structural injury or physiological disruption to the brain function due to an external force, and usually is indicated by an onset or a worsening of at least one of the following events, and I'll kind of touch base on those 3 kind of briefly too. But in addition to that definition, they're graded by different severity levels, from mild, moderate, severe, which majority are the mild, also known as concussions, but you also have penetrating as well. And you'll often hear it described as the invisible injury, especially within the military, or the invisible wound of the war, because more often than not, a TBI cannot be seen physically, except for the cases of the penetrating or the open head injuries. But majority of TBI within the military are the mild or the concussions. So as I mentioned, the TBI is indicated by a new onset or a worsening of the following signs. So kind of touching base back on that, one of the first signs is any period of loss of decreased level of consciousness, or LOC. And that can go anything from up to 30 minutes, considered just the mild TBI, or 30 hours, less than 24 hours, the moderate, or anything greater, more severe. And also, usually people kind of mentioned loss of consciousness as blocked out, kind of losing consciousness for a certain period of time. Another one is loss of memory. And so loss of memory can also be referred to as a post-traumatic amnesia or PTA. And this can either occur before the event or even after the event itself. And they're graded about the length of time that you lose that. So less than 24 hours, usually more for the mild. And then you also have the alteration of mental state. And so, or alteration of consciousness. And so it's also can be described as an alteration in mental state, can occur as confusion, disorientation, have a little bit slow thinking. So you're really just kind of like in a foggy mind state. So what is a concussion? So another way a lot of times people kind of refer to as concussions as a blow or a jolt to the head that disrupts the normal functioning of the brain. And as a reminder, here are the three main levels of severities, though the mild, how it's kind of starred, is the most common, or the concussions. And so a lot of times when people have had a concussion, they'll say things like, oh, I just got my bell rung, or I got knocked in the head. But does that necessarily mean you had a concussion? Yes and no. That's why it's important to be screened to make sure. And that's just always for an awareness. So here you could kind of see the DoD worldwide numbers. And so since 2000, we started tracking TBI within the DoD. And so here it's kind of important to see that since at least the year 2000, right now we have over 380,000 diagnosed with TBI. And of those are just the first initial contact of the individual that is tracked. It doesn't track that if they sustained multiple within their career as well. And many times, because of stigma within TBI within the military, sometimes they don't get seen at all. So that number can definitely be more increased as well. And from there, you can kind of see how mild TBIs are so prevalent within the DoD, accounting for 82%. And it's kind of good to know that some of the key facts that a lot of ages 18 to 24 years old are most common to have higher rates of TBI, and especially within the military, and that can be due to their MOS, their position within the military, but as well as the leisure activities they may be doing, motorcycles as well, whatever that may be. Army does have the highest rate of prevalence within the TBI just because they are the biggest force, the biggest branch there, whereas the Marines, they have a little bit higher prevalence of it within it. So it's kind of good to just be aware of that. So here you can come and see, oops, I am so sorry. All right, I'm sorry about that. So here you can kind of see the common causes of TBI, and you kind of see side by side from the civilian side, but as well as within the military. And it's good to know that they are actually very similar. And though this graph is a little outdated from 06, it still remains true today. Majority of TBI within the military itself are falls and vehicle accidents. And majority of these TBIs actually occur in the garrison setting, so at home. Less than 20% actually occur in the deployed setting. And majority of these happen in day-to-day activities, training events as well. I know at least up here in the Northeast region, we get very severe winter storms. So a lot of our patients are from vehicle accidents in the snow ditches, but as well as slipping and falling on ice. So it's still definitely very similar to civilian communities. All right, so now I'm going to touch base real quick. I'm sure you guys are aware of the impact of multiple concussions, potential recovery complications, PTSD and TBI, but as well as a little bit of prevention as well. So you can see, Headache is the most common physical symptom of concussions, but you might also see that there's others as well. It's really important to remember that each person who has sustained a concussion might have different symptoms. And again, recovery times vary amongst everyone. No two concussions are ever going to be the same. Everyone heals, treats very, very differently, and it kind of goes at your pace. So you'll commonly see sleep disturbances as well following concussions, which can oftentimes be seen through restless sleep, waking up multiple times a night, and this can lead to increased fatigue and headache, perpetuation. And so often providers really just want to make sure to get your sleep schedule under control first, and this will definitely help your symptoms later on as well. And you'll definitely be seeing a lot more visual disturbances as being very common, so they're doing a lot more assessments now that is including visual disturbances. And so the term cognitive also relates to the processes of the mind, thinking or reasoning or remembering. You can have symptoms of TBI that affect the thought process, memory issues. Sometimes people say they just can't focus or you can't remember the things that you used to do. And so it's definitely very common symptom from a concussion, just difficulty finding words for that. And then of course some of the emotional symptoms you may encounter: feeling anxious, irritable, things that once were not a big deal might make you more frustrated, anxious, or angry. And this can cause you to lose your temper more often or quicker than you might have prior to the concussive event. So whether you yourself may have noticed it or a loved one may have noticed, but it is your behavioral, your emotional feelings can definitely change after sustaining a concussion. So within the military, you can be exposed to PTSD as well. The concussion is the result of a traumatic event, and so is a post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. So as a result, these two conditions can actually overlap. It can be very tricky, even just to figure out which symptoms are from post-traumatic stress and which are from concussions. But when we learn about concussion, it's important to also know that what concussion is not, and some of the symptoms are the same, but others are very different. Whereas some of the symptoms, PTSD, can include flashbacks, nightmares, self-destructive behaviors, fearfulness, started easily guilting feelings or being on high alert. Whereas some of the symptoms, concussions or possible symptoms, include the headaches, the dizziness, balance problems, nausea, sensitivity, vision changes, a little bit more the physical symptoms as well. But some of those that overlap are the fatigue, the sleep problems, memory. And so sometimes those that may have been getting treatment for PTSD may not be noticing certain symptoms, but it's actually resulted from a concussion. But we also have different overlapping TBI psychological symptoms as well, multiple concussions. So if you do sustain multiple head injuries, it's still expected, though the recovery time can sometimes take longer, and especially as we age, that time may increase as well. And so it's one of the reasons why we discuss the importance of prevention at any age. It is so important still to practice prevention. And so especially while you're recovering from a head injury, it is important to take the steps to avoid another head injury just to help minimize the recovery time. You definitely want to try to avoid and prevent as much as possible. And like I said, there are more likely to receive a second concussion if you have not fully recovered from your first one. So make sure you get the treatment, the help, heal properly first from your first one. And like how I mentioned before, recovery time may take a little bit longer, but it's okay. Prevention in most cases is so important to try to prevent. So whether summer months, it's beautiful out now, you're riding bikes, you're ATVing, making sure you're wearing properly fitted helmets, don't try to overexert yourself. if you start flaring up your symptoms, just try to ease back just a little bit. Be aware if you're going hiking this summer, looking around the ground, just kind of be aware of your environment. Wearing seat belts when you're driving, anything like that, anything that you kind of just maintain your safety and just try to prevent as much as possible. But if something does occur, it can happen. Just rest is the biggest thing. Definitely seek help by a professional as soon as possible. Remember, you want to recover first from your initial injury, just so you don't avoid another one. All right, so now we're going to talk a lot more about Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center, a lot of the different resources, a couple other websites that can be useful as well. So if you're not familiar with the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center, it was established in 1992 to integrate specialized TBI care, research, and education across the military and veteran medical care systems. DVBIC was tasked to track and evaluate head injury survivors, ensure appropriate treatment, and rehabilitate, study treatment outcomes, and counsel and education family members on how to best care for service members with TBI. DVBIC is congressionally mandated, and it is seen as the DoD's TBI Center of Excellence. So DVBIC's mission is to serve active duty family members, their beneficiaries, veterans through TBI, through state-of-the-art clinical care, innovative clinical research initiatives, and educational programs, and support for force health protection services. And DVBIC fulfills this mission through ongoing collaboration with the DoD, military services, the Department of Veteran Affairs, civilian health partners, local communities, families, and individuals with TBI. So here you kind of see our DVBIC network sites. We have 23 different sites around the nation, but as well as around the world, because we do have a site in Larmsee in Germany. And so all of these different military treatment sites, as you could kind of see, but we also have sites at the 5 VA polytrauma sites around, and that's Fort Campbell's Intrepid Spirit, but we have one in Tampa is very big, Walter Reed. So we have majority of all these different sites, and all these sites have DVBIC personnel within their locations. I myself located at Fort Drum, New York as the Regional Education Coordinator, and like how I mentioned earlier, I help take care of the Northeast region, but each one of these sites have a personnel just like myself, and they have a region where they reach out into the military communities, the VA centers, partners within the communities, just to provide information and resources to everyone affected. So DVBIC, we have a ton of different resources that are available, and all of these resources I'm going to touch base on can be accessed on the DVBIC website, and I'll give that at the end. So you guys do have that, but you can instantly download it, order it. Like I mentioned, everything is completely free, and the website does provide a lot more information as well. But some of the fact sheets that we do have, just TBI Awareness, it kind of gives you the rates of TBI, common causes as well. Signs, symptoms, really good as an awareness one as well. Concussion and PTSD, so you'll have that kind of picture that I showed earlier, but to kind of really understand the similarities and differences between the two. And then we have the symptom management fact sheets, and I'll touch base on those right now. So these are some of our symptom management fact sheets, and these were developed by subject matter experts from the DoD and the VA. And these fact sheets include locations with additional information or support, such as mobile applications, which I'll touch base a little bit later, but anything that kind of pertains to that symptom at hand. Managing headaches is one of the latest ones that we have, but kind of gives you tips, pointers, how to manage your headaches, kind of help you recognize your triggers that's kind of causing those headaches. Managing neck pain kind of gives you various techniques, a little bit of stretching as well, maybe adding some heat, some cold compression may help you. Head injury and dizziness can provide tips, causes, how to track your dizziness, what's kind of causing them. but as well as kind of give you a little bit of exercises too to do. Very, very simple exercises, more like stretches. But you also have changes behavior, personality, or mood, and that one just kind of help you manage and look at your different types, which kind of triggering those changes, those mood changes right then and there. Ways to improve your memory has a lot of really good recommendations on how to really kind of work with your memory, keeping your mind sharp, keeping a routine, very important. It'll definitely help you. So it kind of also has a little journal too for that, as a memory journal that you can use on that. And then the Healthy Sleep app fact sheet gives you tips, pointers just to practice good, healthy sleep hygiene. Stuff like trying to avoid blue light. You shouldn't be going to sleep with the TV. You definitely don't want to watch TV right away, or even on your phone. The blue light can actually hinder that a little bit, but this actually gives you a lot of relaxation exercises, like just making a fist for a little bit and relaxing, stuff you kind of do in bed just to kind of relax a little bit and try to get yourself ready for sleep. But all of these do have the mobile applications too, just as another guide for you. We also have family and caregiver resources, and it is so important not only to take care of the individual with the TBI, but as well as the family. They themselves go through a lot as well. So our family needs product line contains some amazing resources that really do help address some tough topics surrounding TBI. The first one, Addressing Family Needs booklet, it discusses some of the tough topics surrounding TBI, such as driving right after the TBI, avoiding substance abuse, how to build stronger family ties. Just provides a lot of different tips and pointers and information for that. The Taking Care of Yourself While Caring for Others booklet. A lot of times, unfortunately, caregivers can often be overlooked for support, and this booklet addresses the key topics like importance of practicing good sleep hygiene for yourself, exercises and nutrition, as well as the importance of just really taking time aside for yourself. It's very important for you just kind of also try to recharge. Now, the last two, talking about children about TBI, and then talking to children about moderate to severe TBI. Those are two different booklets. So these two booklets help parents and guardians address the topic of TBI within the children. And so one of the generalized TBI and one is for the moderate and severe TBI. And each of these breaks down the content by age range, which is really good for children to really kind of comprehend what's kind of going on with the individual. And it breaks it down by the age range and the stage of the development of that child. Really good, brings up the top topics, but really just how to communicate that with children, as sometimes they may not really be comprehending kind of what's going on. So this one actually focuses more on the child if they sustain a concussion. I highly recommend this book, especially if you have children who are in athletics. But this booklet really helps provide parents information on how to recognize and aid children back into the learning environment following concussions. And it includes some questions parents can ask providers, as sometimes you go into a doctor's office and you forget to ask all the important questions. So this is actually kind of really good to just bring with you and kind of as a reminder, hey, maybe I should ask this question just to make sure. But this really helps aids the recovery process. It lists symptoms and really how to return children back to school and back into stages within school. And so more of a progressive approach for optimal recovery. And so that child should not be suffering within the classroom at all. But not only do we have it for children, we also have it for service members or veterans. Honestly, anyone who does have a TBI and who is enrolled in post-secondary school, I highly recommend this book, not just focused for the service members or veterans. Very, very good book that really does help for those who have experienced a TBI and who are enrolled, but it gives tips for managing ongoing symptoms, navigating the academic setting and demands, transitioning to civilian setting, self-advocacy, and it also provides answers to common questions about accommodation plans within the school if you do need that, financial aid, but as well as assistive technology and who to go speak to that about if you do need some resources, some help within the classroom so you can be successful. There's a really good table within there that I really like, and it helps you kind of break down your class schedule. Write down your class schedule in there, but making sure you're setting time with breaks, as well as study time, but stuff so you're not really aggravating your symptoms so much. So really kind of helps guide you through in school so you can be very successful. We also have the Family Caregiver Curriculum, and so this source provides a ton of information and support for the caregivers of service members and veterans. Specifically, this one a little bit more for the moderate to severe TBI, but honestly, it can still be used for anyone. It has so much good information in it. So this was actually a result of a congressional action and cooperation from a panel made up of TBI survivors, family members, and experts appointed by the White House and the Department of Defense and Health and Human Services. And so this is broken down into different modules, and all of this can be accessed online. It's not something you really need to order or have it printed out just because it is so massive. It's over 500 pages, but it is tons of information for you. Just kind of how to navigate through getting treatment, your different providers you'll be seeing, what they're kind of be working with. They have stories of actual caregivers, stuff that they've kind of gone through, kind of give you tips, pointers, and may be a little bit successful and helpful for you. Now, this can be downloaded on the DVBIC website, but we're also updating this. And so hopefully this should be done this year, and they're completely revamping it, going to be a little bit more easy to navigate, a lot more updated information too. So I'm really looking forward to that. So definitely look out for that. DVBIC, we also provide the TBI Family Podcast. So this had launched in 2016, and it provides a series for the caregivers, service members, veterans with the TBI. And so each episode offers information or the resources for you. Some of the topics, just a few of them, were substance use and TBI, art as self-care for caregivers, sleep issues, advocating for you and your loved one. And those were just a couple of topics. They range from a lot of different ones, as well as other different services, some within the VA as well. But all of these can be accessed on the DVBIC website. You can easily look through the list, listen to those, download the information for that, or you can even download them through the SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play. It's a really good podcast just to kind of get information, listen from other caregivers as well as they go on the podcast, and kind of just really help each other out. So as I had mentioned before about the mobile applications, and these are amazing. So DVBIC did a partnership with Connective Health, and so these mobile applications are all completely free, no charge to download at all, and can be accessed through the iPhone, the Android, Google Play, anything like that. So you could definitely go ahead and look through and see what you like. The Concussion Coach, this one, whether veterans, service members, honestly anyone can use this and really kind of help you manage your symptoms, kind of diary kind of look at to see what's kind of causing it, kind of help guide you a little bit, stuff to really kind of help cope with your symptoms. So it's really good kind of have just for you to kind of help keep track. Life Armor, that mobile application is kind of a companion with After Deployment website. If you aren't familiar with that website, I'll kind of talk a little bit about that later too, but it has a partnership with it as a companion. So that features a comprehensive learning, self-management tools to assist members of the military community with common mental health concerns, such as post-traumatic stress, depression, relationship issues, sleep problems. So it's really good to have. The Dream Easy app. Now that one uses imagery, rehearsal therapy principles to change nightmares into less disturbing dreams. The app offers dream visualization and rescripting exercises, and it has a dream log. So it offers sleep tools such as muscle relaxation and breathing exercises as well. So on the bottom left, the Breathe to Relax. That one is probably the most popular mobile application. It was actually featured on the Dr. Oz show. But that one, I really like this one. It's a portable stress management tool that utilizes hands-on diaphragmatic breathing exercise. So it really does helpful with stress, anxiety management, mood stabilization, and anger control. You can kind of set it up to how you want it. It has background music and it kind of tells you breathe in 5 seconds, breathe out 10 seconds, kind of helps work with that. It's really good just to kind of relax, and I highly recommend anyone use that one. The PTSD coach in this one definitely used like accessory to psychological health treatment, but to help manage symptoms of PTSD. A lot of the features include self-assessment modules, recommended coping skills to help manage those symptoms, and just support resources and education about the trauma and PTSD. The CBTI coach, and that one stands for the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. And so that one can be used more with formal treatment for insomnia, but it can also be used as a standalone educational tool. And so this one is really cool because it provides a sleep assessment, a sleep diary, sleep management tools, and reminders. So this one was actually developed in a partnership with the Department of Veteran Affairs, National Center for PTSD. So very, very useful. And I'll do one more, Virtual Hope Box. So this one really helps build those positive influences in your life when you're upset or you're just having a bad day. If you're able to combine meaningful memories with relaxation coaching and distracting activities to help them cope when you're kind of feeling down. So it's very cool. But all of these were created by Connected Health, but like I had said, you can easily download these from your iPhone, from your Android. Really good, kind of just play around and see what really kind of works for you. And they are mentioned on all the fact sheets as well. But yeah, kind of look for those. So ahead for the future. Ahead for the future is DVBIC's TBI initiative that launched in 2015. And it was used to raise awareness of TBIs in the non-deployed setting with the service members, veterans, and their families. So on this, we have over 15 different videos from service members, veterans, caregivers who've actually shared their stories of TBI recovery and even just going and seeking help for their TBI. And you can actually find those on the website. They have really good videos from them. And they're always looking for people to kind of hear their story and really trying to seeking help for them. Ahead for the future also is kind of reminds me of the CDC's Heads Up campaign, kind of similar but very different. So you do have those blogs, those videos like I mentioned, but you also have like helmet flyers as well as more of a TBI awareness and prevention. They'll kind of give you tips and pointers, just kind of be aware and kind of be safe. These are some other resources you guys may be familiar with, very, very popular within the active duty communities for the families, but you have the Military Kids Connect, as well as the Sesame Street for military families, and both of these sites are really good with children, and especially with parents kind of understanding difficulties within military life. Caregiver kind of give you tips, pointers for the children. There's games for the kids as well, stuff for them that they can kind of comprehend a little bit more easier too. But it is definitely a good resource, especially for children with parents who do have TBI as well. So like I said, DVBIC, these are the websites. The DVBIC website, we're kind of touch base on a lot of the information. There's also a ton more information and resources on there. We do have a lot of information for providers as well. So depending from service members, active duty veterans, caregivers, all that information can actually be accessed on that website. On the Ahead for the Future website, like I said, you have the videos, you have blogs, prevention information as well, and the after deployment one. This is another military resource that provides tons of information on it. It does touch base on TBI as well, so you do get that information, but it can also range from hot topics from substance abuse, smoking cessation, PTSD, finances, relationships. So they have different information as well as videos explaining stuff that kind of help through there. So it's definitely a good kind of resource to have. And those are just a couple. There's so much information and resources out there. I am still learning about as much too, so there's a ton out there, but we do work with a lot of the military treatment facilities, the VAs, so the VA supports, it's very, very important too. And there I am. I provide a lot of information, TBI trainings within my area. I do a lot of briefings for the military and TBI prevention. But I also provide information for patients, families, anything that I can pretty much do. I try to do as much as I can. And that's it. I'll turn it back to Lauren. Thank you again.
Thank you, Emily. That's great. There's a lot of helpful tools in there. So if anyone didn't catch any of that while the slides were being shown, this is being recorded and will be emailed out to everyone who registered for the event, and will end up on our autonomic disorders video library, which you can find at vimeo.com/dysautonomia. I wanted to dig in a little bit on specifics of post-concussive dysautonomia, which is sort of a subset of concussed individuals. So interestingly, you could probably leave one of your slides up, Emily, just something interesting to look at.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. It's a lovely family. So Dr. Brent Goodman at Mayo Clinic in Arizona had done a showing. They did autonomic testing on people fairly soon after they had been concussed. I guess they had kind of come to the emergency room, and they were wondering, what percentage of concussed individuals have some autonomic dysfunction. And it turns out it's just about everyone. When people are initially concussed, almost everyone has an imbalance in their autonomic nervous system that looks a lot like, it's not official POTS, but they get a sympathetic excess and a little bit of a reduction in their sympathetic tone. They get an orthostatic tachycardia, kind of a hyperadrenergic, kind of shaky syndrome. And for most people who are concussed, this resolves in a few weeks to a few months. But there's a subset that it continues for. And so we don't really have good research knowing what percentage of the total concussed population progresses to sort of a long-term chronic illness dysautonomia. But it's certainly known to happen. I'm actually one of them. I had a snowboarding concussion in 2010. And I woke up the next day with full-blown dysautonomia, and it took a long time to improve, and I'm 9 years later and I still have it, but I'm doing a lot better. So we have a couple questions from people we're going to try to answer, and I also wanted to just quickly do a poll just to see from our audience that's on here, just some questions. If you want to participate, you don't have to, but so I want to know, do you or a loved one, have you experienced post-concussive dysautonomia? So I'm going to ask a question, and you have a few seconds to answer it. And once enough will answer it, we'll go back to doing the slides. So let's see. Okay, I think we've got, let's see, seconds left. Okay, so the answer on 88% of our listeners said that they have had a onset of dysautonomia after a concussion, and 12% didn't. And so I'm going to try to answer some of the questions I've asked during Emily's talk. So someone said, how common is dysautonomia after brain concussion and diagnosis? That's sort of what I just touched on. We know that the initial concussive period and autonomic imbalance is very common. And for most people, that resolves on its own and also through concussion rehabilitation. And I don't really have an answer for you on what the long-term prognosis is for everyone. Everyone's a little different. It really is so situation specific with concussions. But I can tell you from speaking with a lot of concussion experts, rehab experts, and neurologists who specialize in dysautonomia and concussions, trying to get yourself involved in a concussion-specific rehabilitation program can be very, very helpful. There's an excellent program at UPMC in Pittsburgh. Their website is Rethink Concussions. If you Google that, just like Google Concussions UPMC, you'll find their website. And they do concussion rehab with patients around the world. There's an excellent program at SUNY Buffalo by Dr. Leddy, Leddy. Interestingly, Mayo Clinic's POTS rehabilitation program, which they call the C program, is actually quite similar to the concussion rehab programs, even though it has a different aim. I know this because I sat in with Dr. Sandroni from Mayo Clinic and the UPMC doctors. We were there doing lectures on dysautonomia at UPMC, and we met the folks and we learned about their concussion program. And Dr. Sandroni is like, this is basically the same thing, Mayo. It's sort of, a bit of a push through kind of type of program, and that doesn't work for everyone. It's not a magic cure or anything. But for someone in concussed, there's a lot of different pieces. It's not just if you just exercise or you just take it's sort of a holistic look at their sleep patterns, look at their emotional stability, family dynamics, their social dynamics, their physicality. They're getting them exercise and shape again. It's really concussion is really complicated, and concussion with chronic illness is even more complicated. So trying to find a specialist, I know it's really hard to find anyone who has recent autonomic disorders. You can check out our website, dysautonomiainternational.org/doctors, for a partial list of physicians that are helpful. There's certainly other doctors out there, haven't all made our website list. Another great way to find a good doctor is to join the Dysautonomia International support group in your state or province. We also now have an Alteration group. We're US, Canada, and Australia right now. And we have sort of an international group, which we would welcome other types of dysautonomia patients in too. And you can ask other patients from your area, hey, has anyone found a good concussion rehab specialist here, a PT, neurologist? And a lot of times someone in your state will say, oh, you can see so-and-so up in whatever town. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It is hard, no doubt, to find it in this. I think it's also really important to understand with concussion, sometimes there are people who have had a concussive injury and had sort of a chronic illness as a result, and years later, they go to rehab and they actually can see improvement. I met some of these patients at UPMC in Pittsburgh, and it was amazing. It was a police officer who had been in a severe car accident, had a bad head injury, lost his job, developed PTSD, got divorced because of his mood swings. I mean, just his life was ruined. And like 8 years later for rehab, and he got his life back. So I don't want you to be discouraged if you've been dealing with a post-concussive dysautonomia for 10 years or something. That doesn't can't see some improvement with targeted rehab. So some other resources we can point you to on dysautonomia specific concussion info. If anyone is interested, you could email info@dysautonomiainternational.org and try to send you some of the journal articles on this. Dr. Goodman at Mayo Clinic has some stuff. if you Goodman, concussion, autonomic, you'll find some YouTube videos from Dr. Goodman about their research at Mayo Clinic on this. There's also a journal article that I wrote with Dr. Barris from CHOP and Nicole Miranda, who is a VA rehab physical therapist out in Colorado. And we wrote an article meant for physical therapists on how to rehab a dysautonomia concussion patient, because physical therapists have very strict protocols that they follow for how to rehab concussion patients, but protocols don't really take into account orthostatic intolerance. So you could, they could be telling you to run on a treadmill, which is not going to work if you have POTS or an orthostatic problem that makes it hard to stand up. So we wrote this journal article for physical therapists to let them know they should check orthostatic vitals in their concussed patients. And if they have an orthostatic problem, that they should begin the rehab exercises in a reclined position, like a rowing machine, a recumbent bike, or a pool with supervision, rather than saying patient who can barely stand, oh, now you have to go run on a treadmill. So hopefully if you take that journal article to a physical therapist in your area, especially a PT who specializes in neuro rehab or brain injury rehab, they would know what to do with it. And we have some other lectures on post-concussive dysautonomia from Dr. Cook, who is the military health system's only autonomic neurologist and one of our fantastic medical board members. And there might also be a lecture from Goodman, although I'm not sure if we recorded that one. Every year at our conference, we record some of the lectures, but not all of them, because it's super expensive to do recording for a whole day. So we have, let me get through some of these other questions here. So someone was asking about a relative who's a civilian and is having a really hard time finding a specialist. I think probably besides, checking the Dysautonomia International website, you want to find a neurologist, right? But ask around in your area, call some of the physical therapists and say, hey, do you guys have any contacts who are neurologists who specialize in concussion rehab? And I think increasingly the concussion rehab doctors and physical therapists, there's a growing awareness of the autonomic dysfunction in this population. They're definitely not as good as going to a major autonomic expert, but they're hard to find too. And those experts don't usually do concussion rehab. You're kind of in between two fields, and neither one is really adequately equipped to deal with these large populations we have. But looking for a neurologist that specializes in injury and concussive rehab type of patients would be really helpful. Nelson was asking, how long can TBI symptoms last? So Emily, I've been talking too much. Do you try to answer that question?
I think I talk too much.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
It's a really good question, and I get asked this a lot, but there is really no time frame on the recovery process for TBI. Everyone is very different. It can affect people with a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and it can progress longer. And so if you were exposed to multiple concussions, now that recovery process is going to be a lot longer. Even still, because the stigma of TBI within the military, a lot of times they don't get treatment right away. So even still, we're still seeing people out who had a TBI 15 years out and who are still suffering from these symptoms, but are now getting help that they need. So there's really no set time frame for the recovery process. Everyone is completely different. So definitely just kind of take your time and kind of work through that.
Yeah, I think it's like Emily said this lecture, and again now, and I said it too, it's concussion is, we give it like one term, but it's really all of the different pieces of your brain could be injured in a different way, right? Or not injured at all, depending on how your injury occurred. So, an injury to one area of your brain might cause one set of symptoms and might be fairly to repair. And then an injury to a different part of your brain might be much harder to sort of resolve, to self-heal itself. So it's not like concussion itself really isn't one illness. It's a whole bunch of different things depending on how your nervous system was affected by your injury. I would say even if you've had concussion a really, really long time though, maybe you'll never be 100% cured, but you can really get improvement and work on managing the symptoms. I've had post-concussive dysautonomia for 9 years now, and strangely, in my case, the concussion turned out it set off an autoimmune disease. And so we see a subset of patients who get this autonomic imbalance after a concussive injury. And having a chronically disrupted autonomic nervous system, there is some other research showing that this leaves more prone to inflammation, which could probably contribute to chronic pain and perhaps even an increased risk of autoimmune disease. And so we see a lot of symptoms in concussed patients especially those who have sort of a chronic illness, a concussion that has turned into post-concussive syndrome, which is almost indistinguishable from POTS, except for the heart rate criteria. The symptoms virtually overlap. These patients can have, some patients can resolve really quickly in a few months, and other patients can have it for years. But wherever you are in that process, I would say definitely have some hope and know that there's really good research happening there's way more research happening on concussion than there is on dysautonomia. And one way we hope to increase dysautonomia awareness is actually through this network of doctors and specialists who focus on TBI and concussions. That's an established field. That's a large field of people trying to figure out how to help patients better. So someone asked, can an MTB, which is the other sort of acronym that's used for mild TBI, meaning concussion, can that lead to other symptoms of dysautonomia, such as gastrointestinal function? Yes, absolutely. Emily, do you see that in your military concussed patients, where some of them develop sort of GI problems?
We do. We actually do see a couple of them. I may not be aware of it too much, but we do.
Yeah, and in the concussions who develop an autonomic dysfunction, there's definitely that autonomic imbalance can contribute to a GI motility, either too fast or too slow, depending on how the autonomic nervous system has changed. So someone else asked, if you've developed dysautonomia after a concussion, is there a possibility you'll ever become 100% better? I would guess there's a possibility. I don't like to candy coat things and tell everyone, oh yeah, 100%, you're going to get 100% better, because we don't know that, and I don't think it's helpful to give false hope. But I also think we should all be hopeful, because there's always a chance there are people who consider themselves 100% recovered. I know some post-concussive dysautonomia who consider themselves cured. And there's always a chance. So that's why you have to keep working at it and be patient with yourself and with your body. And my perspective on this is to always try to just do something to get a little better. But if we're sort of focus on, I have to get myself cured, that's really a big bite of the apple. It's hard to chew on that big thing at once. But if you say, I just want to get myself a little healthier this week, I want to eat a little healthier, or I want to do a little more exercise, or I want to work on improving my sleep. You do all these little things over time, and eventually that gets you to a quality of life. And at some point, I don't know how old everyone on this call is, but you're old enough, eventually you're going to have some diagnosis, right? Everybody has something. I'm 40 years old. Every 40 years old has some diagnosis. So you're never 100% healthy, but are you enough to live a good life and be happy and enjoy your family and your friends? I think that's sort of an illness goal, like maybe we can't 100% cure ourselves, but we want to get ourselves to the point of living a good life. And that's different for everyone. Emily, did you have anything you wanted to ask the audience? Because you can ask questions and people can answer in the comments that they write in the questions.
I do not. Like, came up to me right now. I know, I wasn't prepared for that.
Sorry. Okay, well, actually, I kind of want to ask everyone questions. What type of educational resources, future topics do you want to hear related to dysautonomia and concussion? If anyone has specifics on this, because I think it's an area where there really aren't many journal articles on this. So there's not, like, if you go to your doctor and say, I have post-concussive dysautonomia, there's very little guidance for them on what to do for you. So a lot of that guidance is going to be generated by Dysautonomia International and the different doctors and researchers we work with. So to the extent that we can address concerns that are out there in the community, that, you know, the resources, like what Emily shared with us, is great resources, but it's not usually it's not really the stuff that your doctor, like, how do you rehab this patient, right? So there are these tons of guidelines on how to rehab a concussed patient, but except for the one article that that Dr. Boris and I and Nicole Miranda wrote, there really is nothing on how to rehab post-concussive dysautonomia patient. So we want to work on building that, not only patient education materials, but also professional education materials so they know what to do. So someone's asking about brain fog. That is their biggest setback and most pressing them. So are there specific, some of the tools you went over, Emily, are about cognitive and memory and stuff like that. Do you see patients being able to do that over time?
Oh, absolutely. Especially like neuroplasticity, stuff like that. A lot of different exercises. Within our clinic, we have a speech language pathologist, and so she works a lot with cognitive exercises, rehab, as well as our OT, our occupational therapist as well. And so stuff, little practices, a lot of games actually are very, very beneficial and really help with your memory, your word recognition, stuff like that, just kind of practicing. There's even a lot of games and apps too, that kind of like little games for your brain to kind of, it's really good to keep your brain being active actually. And that in turn will kind of help with the brain fog as well, but it'll definitely take some time.
Yeah. Someone else is asking a question. Can getting a concussion after you have already had a type of dysautonomia, can that worsen the dysautonomia? So the answer is yes, definitely. We know a lot of patients who've actually had a type of dysautonomia and either hit their head just, you know, doing something, walking around the house or on a car door or something like that. But then we also meet quite patients who had a syncope event, fainting, and who got a bit of a head injury, rang their bell, so to speak, when they fainted. And this resulted in a concussive injury that worsened their overall dysautonomia symptoms. But it doesn't really mean it's a permanent worsening. Just like anyone who's experienced a concussion, there is the ability for the brain to redevelop those neural connections and or develop new connections. And I would, if you've had that happen to you, I have, you know, a story, really side note here. I was at the American Academy of Neurology conference presenting a research poster on sensory small fiber neuropathy in POTS. And I was running down steps and I whacked my head on the ceiling and I crumbled in a ball on the floor, I gave myself a terrible concussion at a neurology conference with like 10,000 neurologists. So I texted my neurologist who was there and I'm like, I'm in trouble. I just gave myself a really bad concussion. So he told me just like stay off the computer and, you know, rest for a few days. But anyways, it made my dysautonomia symptoms so much worse for like about a year. And then I kind of got back to baseline over time. So I hope whoever's asking this question that you also get back to baseline. It's definitely not an uncommon thing to happen. All right, so we're at 9 o'clock Eastern, which is sort of the time that we wrap up. Emily, did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to share with us?
I just want to say thank you for everyone that actually came and participated, and thank you, Lauren, again for having me talk to everyone. I appreciate that a lot, and hopefully
Yeah.
these resources can be very helpful for you guys.
Yeah, well, we will share links we'll share video on our autonomic disorders video library, and we'll share some links to your websites that have these resources, Emily. But before we go, I just wanted to make some sort of last minute announcements. If anyone on here is a family, we have a U.S. military family support group for Dysautonomia International. So you're going to join that, because we created this group because military families a lot of times have different issues about trying to find doctors within the military health system, or having to move around a lot to different parts of the world. So we wanted to give them that one-on-one support with each other. And then I also want to mention that, if you've heard, our big international conference is this summer in Philadelphia at the Fieldlows Hotel, July 26th to 28th. We have like most of the world's leading dysautonomia experts will be there lecturing, teaching us. We also have some fantastic patient speakers who are people who happen to be dysautonomians, who are social workers, who are nurses, who are physical therapists, and they're really excited to help support our community and educate us. And it's such a great event. So we encourage you to attend if you can. And also let your doctors know during that conference, we have a 7-credit CME course, which is a professional education credits for doctors and nurses and other licensed medical professionals. And all of that can be found on our website. If you go to the main web, on the top right side, there's a link for the conference and the CME. So thank you so much, Emily. We really appreciate this. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good night.